World.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. As I'm getting tongue-tied right as we begin. So today we have Sandy Lamb. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you.
Glad to have you today. And just a little bit about Sandy. So she has a background in a very male-dominated industry with what project, I'm all tongue-tied all of a sudden, project management, engineering, and construction, and really focused on process improvement, strategic planning, innovation, leadership development, and also human performance. And she made this switch. How many years ago has it been, Sandy?
2.5, actually.
Okay, so 2.5 years ago to be an executive coach and really give back with her expertise, her operational insights that she learned while in corporate America. And then she was also able to blend that family and wellness into her own life. So she's also involved in many organizations here in the Colorado Springs area where she utilizes her time takes her time and utilizes her talents to support coaches, leaders, and speakers as well. So she's the owner and CEO of Altitude Business Coaching, and she helps build a culture of belonging and respect between men and women in the workforce. And one of her main focuses is utilizing EQ Powerment and how to lead with that emotional intelligence. So that brings us to our topic for today, emotional intelligence and resilience, learning to flex both muscles. So we are excited to have you, and I know everyone will benefit for learning a little bit more about emotional intelligence right now during these times. So let's dive in.
Sounds good.
What would you say is the relationship between emotional intelligence, or EQ, and resilience?
Well, EQ is emotional quotient. So that's what measures your level of emotional intelligence. And so I do EQ assessments and then put together EQ plans for my clients. And emotional intelligence is really about, like, both of them to me are about raising to higher levels of consciousness, right? So it's the EQ is all about the power and acumen of emotions and sort of getting to those high level of emotional state to bring about higher productivity. And then the resilience side and flexing that muscle really looks like high levels of effectiveness and well-being in the face of uncertainty and disruption. So that's where I think they're a great connection. I've always spoken on leading with emotional intelligence, but why I'm bringing the resilience piece in now seems very timely during the middle of this pandemic and all that we're going through in the world right now. And the idea that ultimately we want to get to where we are being more productive and the best that we can be in the work that we're doing, and brings about better decision making too. I think that's really important to know that when you work on EQ and raising your emotional intelligence, and when you work on being more resilient, it yields better productivity through better decision making.
Yeah. So how do you see that playing out right now in the pandemic? Like what does that really look like?
So honestly, as I like have conversations with people, and I and I look on social media right now, is I can quickly determine who has like high emotional intelligence, who, like, I can spot a high EQ pretty far away, and I can also tell who's being resilient right now and who's not. For example, are they thinking before they act? Are they suspending judgment? How are they Are they overreacting? How are they dealing with their emotions? Are they really letting their emotions drive them right now, or are they driving their emotions and sort of working to manage those effectively? Are they working on the right things? Are they, how are their priorities? What do their priorities look like? Do they have structure in their lives, right? And the biggest thing, this is something my husband taught me, which is words that I live by, is just not worrying over things that you have no control over. And right now, right, all of us, is anybody feeling a little disruption in their life right now, or a challenge maybe,
Right.
And so this is the time when you really need to learn how to flex those muscles, because it's going to get you through to the other side, get you through to 2021, hopefully.
Completely. I see it a lot too within like social media. I think that's huge. Just what people are choosing to focus all of their energy and time on. And yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, we're living in the last 24 hours, a classic example, right? Of something we had no control over, right? We were in 95 degrees in sun in Colorado, and now we're in 30 degrees and I have 6 inches of snow outside, right?
It's crazy.
But yet The kids are like you just said, hey, my kids want to go outside and play in it.
Right.
They're really
Exactly.
resilient, right? They just go with the flow.
Right.
They have to in Colorado.
Completely. It doesn't disrupt their life. It's just the next thing. Yeah. I
Yes.
think that brings up a good point of also responding like a child, because a lot of times, as adults, it's hard for us to just, be resilient and really just shift. And that is something that kids just naturally have that ability to do. Like, oh, it's
Right.
different. Okay,
How
let's
often do
try
you
it.
hear, I was thinking about this the other day, how often do you hear, oh, kids are so resilient, right? And resilient kids grow up to be resilient adults, right? So
Right. Yeah.
like we were talking about, you got to start them young.
Yep. Completely. Completely. So you work with a bunch of different clients, and what would you say is like their number one struggle right now?
I would say the number one struggle is probably trying to feel connected in a disconnected world.
Mhm.
And so that's number one, but a real close second for that is just state of mind. I am a firm believer that positive thoughts drive positive actions and positive outcomes. So
Yeah.
if, and that's all about what resilience is all about, is like that positivity, right? And flexing that positivity muscle. So they're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, like we talked about, and disruption right now. And so it's a question of, how do I manage through this? And how do I manage my emotions too? I just was talking with a client whose manager is becoming is like micromanaging her right now, where he was never like that, but it's in this space of uncertainty. It's like, we don't know how to do this. We don't know how to have a virtual, working relationship. And people still thrive. I mean, we thrive on human connection, right? So
Mhm.
the biggest thing that they're missing and the biggest thing they're struggling with is that real, true human connection. Like, we can do Zoom and this is fantastic, right? But there's no substitute for that face-to-face human
Right.
connection.
I actually think, because I remember before the world of Facebook, before the world of video conferencing, and before that world, I mean, there's quite a few generations that have never lived before that world. And
Right.
I just remember, this shift. I worked with collegiate women for a while after I graduated from college. And
Mm-hmm.
this shift of this mindset where everything was just out there on social media, very public for people, but it wasn't words that they would say to someone in person. It wasn't, and I think that this is a really good reminder with what we're living right now, as to there's nothing that replaces that true human connection. You
For
can
sure.
send an email, you can talk to someone virtually, but that doesn't ever replace it. And so I think people are really becoming and feeling much more aware of that right now, where generations that have never lived it without social media, I think they're seeing the need for that real true human connection more so now than ever. Yeah.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the communication. I mean, communication seems to be always a struggle in corporate America. At least it was when I was working in it. And so, how do you communicate in a world where you don't see each other every day? And
Yeah.
how do you stay connected in lieu of that, right?
Right. What would you say would be like an ideal way to keep that connection? If that's a big thing with your clients, what are they finding as most success with for creating the connection?
Well, I hate
Hard question.
email. Okay. First of all, I hate email. So
Yeah.
I tell my clients that all the time, and I was talking with one last week and they were like talking about how they were sending emails back and forth. And I was like, this is like, I had a 3 email rule when I was in corporate. If you went more than 3 times back and forth on the same subject, you had to get out of your seat and go talk to this person. Right. Well, we can't do that necessarily right now, but we can certainly pick up a phone, or we can find easier ways to communicate with one another as opposed to sitting behind a keyboard. So I encourage that, whether we're in the middle of a pandemic or not, right? So it's even more important now, I think.
Yeah. Like, pick up the phone and talk to people rather than
Yeah, and
a text or an
working to
email.
build those relationships is important anytime. That's
Yeah,
the way in which you do it.
for sure. For sure. Okay, so how does your executive coaching program really help women that are in male dominated industries?
I would say first and foremost, one of my top values is authenticity. And so when I first started my coaching, I was doing business coaching for small business owners.
Mhm.
And that, to me, while I could do it and I know how to put together a strategic plan and a business plan. It just didn't feel authentic to me. And so like you talk all the time about walk a mile in my shoes. Well, one of the biggest credibility factors for me when I'm working with these women is I worked 27 years where I was the only woman at the table. So I have not only walked 1 mile in their shoes, but I've walked thousands of miles in their shoes. So that is a, and there's no substitute for that, right? When you know what that person has gone through. So, and for me, what I really am trying to do is just help them navigate that path, right? So it's sort of learn from the lessons that I've learned over the last 25 plus years and figure out a smoother path for you to get to where you want to be, right? So I would say that's the number one thing in terms of I've been there and done that, you know, so that works for them. And the executive coaching program that I run is split up into 4 modules. So the first module is foundation. So it's all about, you know, values-based, where are you starting from, creating your own personal strategic plan. And then module 2 is organizational skills. So that really focuses more on the art of focus, delegation, and management. I was just talking with somebody about really focusing on your strengths. Do like play to your strengths, right? So, and then all else delegate or eliminate, right?
Right,
So
right.
that idea of those organizational skills when it comes to that, and then things like time management, relationship building, which is very, very important also. And then module 3 is executive leadership. So that is about managing change, conflict resolution, you know, building resilience in an otherwise disruptive world. And then module 4 is balance or blend. For me, I like to refer to it as blend. We were talking about that before the call, is that you're never going to be in balance, right? And so, but this is a really important aspect that a lot of my clients face as wives, as mothers. You know, it's all about how do I spend time, you know, how do I find the right blend for me?
Yeah. And I think that ties so perfectly, which is why I asked you to be one of my guests on Wellness Wednesday, because real wellness is a blend of everything. You know, it's a blend of work life, home life, being mom, being spouse, having, you know, emotional intelligence, but also, you know, IQ, right? And just learning from your mistakes and growing and having, you know, time with, you know, a higher being, your spirituality as well. And I think that finding that perfect blend, which looks different for everyone, is part of creating overall wellness, you know, and really feeling like whole health, you know, and being completely healthy. And
right. It's about mind, body, and soul, right? All
100%,
of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, are there any final words that you would like to share? Threw you for a loop there.
You know, no, I would just say, you know, I was talking about the weather this morning with my husband, and I was like, it's, you know, it's so important to just really not focus on things you can't control. That's like, if you take one thing away from this conversation, it's really find patience and try to find emotional intelligence and self-regulation is all about not reacting, you know, and really responding in a very thoughtful manner. So think before you act, you know, think before you open your mouth and speak. And just be kind to one another right now. You know, it's an important time, I think, to find that human connection and really just be kind to one another, because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon with us. And those of you that are watching, be sure to check out more about Sandy. So I have her website. I have ways to get in touch with her if you have any questions for her or want to reach out to her as well. So that is all shared here under the description of this video. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day. Good to see you.
You too.
Take care.